How did you get into my house?
Come here. Press play on the laptop. You're not Timothy Chalamet, just do it.
Fine, fine, fine.
I hold your net the Gamjabar.
What's a pen?
I hold your net the Gamjabar poison needle instant death. The test is simple. Pause the laptop and you die.
What's on the laptop?
Every fall 2021 anime.
God damn.
Let me tell you the story of Tiger and Bunny. Created by Masafumi Nishida, it can be best described as My Hero for Adults, featuring a wonderfully memorable ensemble cast and tackling some damn heavy issues. It quickly jumped to one of my top 15 anime, then just kinda disappeared. Well, Masafumi is back, making this. Tesla Node is bad. X-Arm level bad. How anyone with a brain could let this hit the air bad. Frankly, I don't really care about the plot. If Tolkien was written with literal feces on a bathroom wall, would you care about the War of the Ring? I sure wouldn't. Eye-melting CG is frequently mixed with 2D for no reason. Characters constantly look dead inside, and the audio literally doesn't sync with the visuals. I'm not kidding. I checked to see if there was a problem with Funimation, but in this scene, the driver's mouth literally starts flapping a full 2 seconds before any dialogue comes out. Nazafumi is listed as the scriptwriter, but I like to believe he just delivered the writing over Zoom because my heart can't take the possibility that he was actually okay with this. Sublimation Studios is simultaneously responsible for one of the worst anime of 2020 and currently one of my favorites of 2021 so far. So how does their original sci-fi project Shikizakura pan out? Well, we got some CG monsters called the Oni, some CG people who fight them, with some dumbass looking suits, and that's about it. The CG is nowhere near Tesla Note levels, but calling this a vanilla anime would be an insult to the flavor, as it's far more akin to the gross, flavorless, sugary slop you get when you try to make ice cream yourself. Or maybe I'm just bad at it. Kaginado is a series of comedy shorts featuring crossovers between many of Key's franchises, including Kennen, Clannad, and Little Busters. If you're not a fan of these types of series, it's very likely you're not going to get anything out of Kaginado. If you're a fan of Key, I still don't know exactly what you would get out of this. Basically, if you need my recommendations to watch this, then this anime is definitely not for you. In September of 1980, Muteking the Dashing Hero was released to what could be described as the most 80s anime ever made, fulfilling every single checkbox of ridiculous action camp that you would expect from this era. Then it was literally never heard from again. Most 80s anime are milked to oblivion, but there was no manga tie-in, no live-action reboot, no nothing. Well, welcome to 2021, where we finally have a reboot in the form of Muteking the Dancing Hero, and maybe it should have just stayed in the 80s. Rather than use my own witty synopsis, I'll just defer to the anime's very poignant summary. The protagonist is transformed into the hero Muteking and is fighting against evil aliens, quote, for some reason. To be clear, I welcome reboots, remasters, and reimaginations of older series, but Muteking can't seem to decide on which generation it wants to belong to. The beginning seems to want to be appealing to modern humor, but quickly devolves into classic anime cringe in the second half. It's a shame, too, considering My Queen Real actually gets to play a character and gets a number in the series. Frankly, I would have loved to see her get her own series, or maybe just gender bend the 80s superhero with her at the helm, but I suppose the big wigs in charge are just averse to making money. Okay, so how do I describe this anime? So there are ghosts that are haunting people, right? And our main character Makoto is able to see them. He meets Rihito, a exorcist that aims to teach Makoto how to take care of these ghosts. And in his words, the best way to awaken your spiritual senses is to have an erotic experience. So every time they need to remove a ghost, Rihito grabs Makoto from behind and makes him orgasm? So if that sounds good to you, check out The Night Behind the Tricornered Window. Apparently, Boys Love fans say it's peak fiction, and you know, I'm not gonna disagree with that. Have at it, my friends. Remember when card game anime were a thing? Well, we're back, baby, with yet another mixed media project with Build Divide Code Black, and you'll never guess what they do the entire episode. They play a card game. Unless you're planning on getting into the card game, and I'm almost certain you're not, I don't see why you would bother with Build Divide, unless there's something entrancing about the main character turning into a total edgelord halfway through the duel instead of a Giga Chad like my boy Yugi. Apparently the main character has some sort of prescience or something, so I guess it would be sort of interesting if he uses it to cheat his way. Actually, why has no one tried that? Imagine a card game anime where the main character knows how to like false shuffle or palm cards or something. Screw the heart of the cards, I want to see the heart of the finesse. Because sports card games clearly weren't selling, we have PuraOre, a lolly ice hockey gacha mobile game with of course an associated anime. Jesus Christ, how long do we have waifu NFT? God damn it. So PuraOre is a pretty basic sports anime. Cute girls play hockey and the games can be pretty thrilling, coupled with some fantastic anime. Wait, what? What? Did I miss something? This anime is, and I'm not kidding, about a group of girls who start a hockey team that does an idol performance after each game. Like, straight up, changes out of their gear, gets into frilly outfits, and goes full Love Live right there on the ice. I want you to imagine for a moment you're a team in the final game of the season, and you get beat by like 1 point. You're distraught, your dreams have been crushed, and these girls lace up and just Fortnite dance right there on your team's corpse. I have no idea who this anime is for. It tries to create a bizarre mix of genres that only results in a generic glop of moe blop that I don't see appealing to sports fans or idol anime fans. It's difficult to really explain what Visual Prison is about because it doesn't really have a plot per se. Visual Prison is about Yuki, a young boy who looks up to his favorite J-rock band Eclipse, and then the entire city gets attacked by vampires who start singing, I think? While there is a somewhat coherent narrative, for the most part this anime is an advertisement for visual kai group Eclipse, whose music kinda bangs by the way, you should check them out. Anyway, I don't really see the point of watching this unless you're a gigantic fan of Eclipse, so I'll refrain from passing judgment on Visual Prison.
I Can Make Your Ears Happy in 180 Seconds is about a Cuddy who challenges her friends to get into ASMR with—
Okay, I'm not doing that gag the entire time. This anime is legitimately just an ASMR, starting up with the warning that you should watch it with headphones. And despite only being 3 minutes long, this was actually the hardest episode to sit through. How could anyone want to feel a bamboo pick dig through their ear canal for 3 minutes straight is beyond me. And I know, I shouldn't be getting mad at this, but someone needs to explain to me what the point is. Anyway, if ASMR floats your boat, I guess you'll end up liking I Can Make Your Ears Happy in 180 seconds. For over half a decade now, Toei and Bandai have been milking millennial nostalgia for the original Adventure series, dragging the motif of, hey, remember those characters you grew up with? Well, they're adults now and have adult problems, to the point where said motifs apply to kids who watched the first film back in 2016. The final episode of the Digimon Adventures remake, that may or may not be actually canonically connected to the Tri-Films because screw making sense, finished airing just weeks ago. So it's finally time for the franchise to move on to the safest, most basic Digimon plot Toei veteran Musahi Sogo could come up with. Essentially, Digimon are being manifest as glitchy apparitions and causing some trouble. So our hero obtained Digimon partners and fight them. Look, I'm not asking for a deconstruction as silly as making cancel culture and political correctness actual villains. No, I'm not kidding, look it up. But is this really the best we could do decades into the franchise? Especially out considering it facilitated such subversive creators as Mamata Hosoda and Chiaki Konaka. I understand the irony of a grown-ass man asking for edginess in a glorified toy commercial, but I have to wonder if they just needed to fill a time slot. I suppose I'll just go back to deluding myself into thinking Digimon Survive will ever be released. At first I saw Deep Insanity was yet another mixed media project destined for the dustbin of anime that like 3 people hype up as groundbreaking but are never heard from again. Then I started to watch it and thought, holy hell does this look pretty, I must have had the wrong impression. Then I checked online and saw, oh. This series is ripe for mobile game exploitation, taking place in a future where a mass pandemic has overtaken the— wait, this does take place in the future, right? The source of the virus can be traced back to a hole in the middle of Antarctica that our personality-lacking Shigure wants to enlist to explore. Psychopath screenwriter Makoto Fukami is heavily responsible for the original concept, but isn't much involved with the anime and it shows, with Deep Insanity's plot being little more than a stale cracker of a sci-fi paint job. If the art and animation looks familiar, that's attributable to Yuki Shinjo, famed Fate Stay Night artist being in charge of the visuals, but none of that really matters when the characters just sit still and shoot guns at whatever this is. I admittedly want to know what's at the bottom of the asylum, but I've been around the block long enough to see another detective is already dead when I see one. You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was not impressed by this isekai. Return to Monkey Isekai, also known as the Fruit of Evolution, Before I Know It, My Life Had It Made, attempts to replicate the success of Tsukimichi Moonlight Fantasy by creating a more humorous, lighthearted anime in the vein of Konosuba, but just ends up being unfunny as a synopsis would suggest. When everyone in Seichi's class are told to be sent to another world, he's left without a party and forced to fend for himself. But don't worry, he gets the help of his companion Sari, who also turns to be a giant pink monkey. No, really, most of the humor in the show is just monkey jokes, with sometimes a gag about Seichi's armpit BO thrown in. In essence, this anime is as if I'm a Spider So What was written by 3rd graders. Apparently some people are claiming that the anime adaptation is a parody of the source material, but honestly that just seems like a cope to me. The evolution fruit isn't good as an isekai, isn't funny as a comedy, and isn't witty even if it was a satire. Okay, so like, we have 2 kingdoms, right? And they're in a space race. right? Rather than the main character Rev's country sending dogs or something to space, we just grab a vampire from the basement and tell Rev to train her for spaceflight. Remember that video I did weeks ago where I had AI generate manga? Well, Moon Laika and the Bloodsucking Princess legitimately feels generated by an AI, despite Akitoshi Yokoyama being known for flubbing cutie honey, but there's a fine line between originality and pure randomness, and this anime seems to cross into the latter. Most of the fundamentals, the designs, the dialogue are just average. That's difficult for me to really want to give it a chance. So while I won't be launching Moon Laika and the Bloodsucking Princess into space, I think I'll just put it into the coffin and move on. Madhouse is often one of those studios brought up in discussions about the top of the industry, but what makes Madhouse different from the likes of Ufotable or Kyoto Animations is their willingness to sell out their skills and work on whatever keeps the lights on. What better way to do this than to put famed Hunter x Hunter director Hiroshi Kojima on a slapstick comedy project? If you've never heard of The Vampire Dies in No Time, well, I guess you must live under the same rock as I do, because the manga has been going strong for nearly 20 volumes since 2015. The story follows Ronaldo, a vampire hunter tasked with eliminating the Great Dralk. Said deadly legendary creature of the night turns out to be a basement-dwelling gamer, and hilarity ensues. So after watching, let me tell you why this series sells so well. I have no idea. Indeed, the pacing was quick, and the sheer density of gags actually made catching each one of the jokes a challenge. I don't think I laughed even once. Most, if not all of the humor boiled down to, isn't Dralk quirky? Look at him dissolve into sand. Mixed with the vampire lord being a pedophile? I'm sure there's someone out there who had a riot watching this, but at the very least, my disinterest in this anime isn't just evidence of my non-existent humor considering the lukewarm response online. By the way, I couldn't pass on The Vampire Dies in No Time without mentioning the absolute bop of the opening Dies in No Time. I have no intention of continuing this anime, but rest assured this song will be on my music playlist for months to come. Last season, my entire world was turned upside down when I watched my very first Love Live series in the form of Love Live Superstar, and somehow stumbled onto one of my favorite shows of the season. The question is if lightning can strike twice with this shonen-loving babby in the form of Doga Kobo's Selection Project, which follows Suzune as she competes in the titular American Idol game show towards being Japan's next top idol. While there's no doubt Selection Project has all of the flair and production quality that of Love Live, it didn't quite meet the same dramatic pull. I felt the first episodes focused way too much on the game show portion of the show, leading Suzune to be reduced to just wants to win the show. Unfortunately, this makes Selection Project's primary point of uniqueness actually its drawback, as the narrative isn't driven by the relationship or drives of the would-be idols, but simply based on the anonymous votes of internet simps who decide their fate. I'm certain Selection Project will be a slam dunk of hardcore idol fans, and director Daisuke Hiramaki ought to be commended for the work done, but I don't think I'll be continuing this performance. Unlike seemingly everyone else, I have not yet read the horror comedy series Mieruko-chan by Tomoki Izumi. When I read that it was horror, I can say I was not expecting the director of Ishikoku Reviewers and Miru Tights to be in charge. And oh boy does it show. I would not be surprised if this anime was written with one hand, each scene having to be punctuated with some compromising shot of Miko, our young girl cursed to see undead spirits and horrors throughout her daily life. Rather than fight back, she chooses to feign indifference, hence where the comedy of this comedy horror comes from. I feared that the joke itself would run dry quickly, but the contrast between the ghastly apparitions and Miku's poker face continued to at least make me chuckle. This was particularly surprising because of how little the camera actually focused on her face. Admittedly, I'm not sure if this anime is a recommendation or not, as I'm not totally clear what it's about, but I would argue that everyone should at least give it a shot, if of course you can put up with all the panty shots. Code AMAIM, Warrior of the Rebellion, is a Sunrise, or should I say Bandai's, newest 23-minute, 24-episode model kit commercial that is sometimes referred to as an anime. Taking place in the far future where global resources have been constrained, multiple countries have begun to occupy Japan, treating its native inhabitants as second-class citizens. Instead of a fascist monarchy in the form of Britannia, our hero Shiba is oppressed by the, I'm not kidding, Australians. Director Habata Nobuyoshi is no newbie to giant robots, having directed the Breakblade as well as the space battleship Yamato films, and he does well with the pacing, each scene never feeling as if it overstays its welcome. However, the problem comes in the writing. Nobuto Kimura has worked with Sunrise on Gundam before, but nothing here feels any bit unique. Shiba has the personality of a plastic model kit, and the plot of resisting occupiers feels if you just took Code Geass and and stripped it down to its mechaskeleton. Unless there's some major twist in the story, and I doubt there will be, AMAIM is a easy skip. You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was not impressed by this isekai. Wait, it's not actually an isekai. What really is the difference between fantasy anime and isekai anyway nowadays? Banished from the hero's party, I decided to live a quiet life in the countryside is about Red, who is banished from the hero's party and decided to live a quiet life on the countryside. Fundamentally, this anime is no different than last season's pharmacy isekai, save for the main character actually having an established backstory. Our protagonist spends his days using his old abilities to help the residents of his village while hiding his heroic past. Indeed, there are some hints of more intrigue and drama stemming from Red's past, but at its core, this anime is as basic as its title would suggest, and likely will only be up your alley if slice of life isekai are your type of thing. Wait, damn it, I called it an isekai again. How about an arranged marriage rom-com? Taishou, Maiden's fairy tale, tells the story of Tamahoki, son of the powerful Shima family. When he cripples his arm from an accident, he's cast aside by his family and forced to live isolated in the countryside. His father doesn't completely forget about him though, buying him a 14-year-old bride who ends up bringing joy to his life. This anime is described as being the healing anime of the season for all of you with cold, distant hearts, being in my opinion a better executed Tonikawa. Yuzuki is adorable and as wholesome as they come, but all of this comes with the asterisk of the age difference, with her being 14 and him 17. Of course, it's nothing as severe as the younger party being 12, but there are jokes about the two sleeping with each other, so all of that ought to be kept in mind. Regardless, if you're looking for a slow, steady, and well-written life fuel, Taishou Maiden's Fantasy may be right for you.
Damn, do you really like any anime?
Look, it's just my first impressions of like the first and second episode, and besides, there's a lot of them. A lot of them are gonna be bad. Anyway, why are you doing this?
To test if you're a real anime fan.
What?
A fake anime fan will destroy his laptop to escape. What will you do?
I'm usually a little lenient on shorts just because it feels as if many anime writers really only had 5 minutes of story to tell but needed a full 23-minute block. Ganbare Doki-chan is about Doki-chan, an office worker with a singular focused goal: get laid. It's cute, it's humorous, and it's non-problematic with all the characters being adults. If for some reason you don't get your fill of, this, here's the creator's Twitter account. Enjoy. Level 5, you know that game company that makes awesome games sometimes, drops them, and then milks the same alright franchises over and over? They started a mecha franchise. Megaton Musahi is like the third anime this season where all of humanity has been wiped out by some apocalypse, in this case an alien invasion. So clearly the last few years of quarantine has been going well for anime creators. The survivors live in a shelter that simulates the world before destruction, having their collected memories of doomsday wiped. Our heroes Yamato and Ryugo are chosen to pilot the rogues because they are really good at throwing hands. And I almost wish they'd stick to those street fights because the robot battles look more like level 5 couldn't decide if they were animating a mecha shell or one of their PS2 era cutscenes. The rest of the anime is quite enjoyable even if the premise isn't all that original, and it's refreshing to see a pair of chads piloting the robot who won't break down when someone raises their voice. That being said, it's easy to see this going nowhere, so I'm gonna give it a couple episodes before walking away. Muv-Luv is a romantic comedy about Takedo Shirogane, who's thrust into a whimsical harem adventure when he wakes up to find beautiful women sleeping in his bed. From here, he must navigate the tumultuous waters of his harem predicament with multiple girls fighting for his love, all vying for his hand in... What? Wait, what do you mean wrong anime? This is definitely Muv-Luv. Muv-Luv Alternative is about a post-apocalyptic future where alien life forms called the Beta have wiped out much of humanity, with mechs known as the TFSF being created to fight them. Yeah, it's kinda confusing. So, Muv-Luv Extra is a visual novel where the original is revealed to be a dream or something, I think. Wait, no, Muv-Luv Extra is the first one, then Muv-Luv Unlimited's the mecha one, but they're actually the same game, and then Muv-Luv Alternative is where Unlimited already happened, but the main character's in a time loop, but there's no anime of the previous timelines, except there's already an anime of Muv-Luv Alternative spin-off novel, and I'll stop. You just want to know if it's any good. Honestly, I could never make it through any of the visual novels, not because they're bad, they're actually listed as the best there is, just because the format really isn't for me. Unfortunately, the anime basically assumes you're familiar with much of the other timelines, and while it's engaging enough in its first episode, or should I say second, where the story actually begins, it's clear that this adaptation is going to fly through its 50-hour source material in just 12 episodes. Well, it's certainly an enthralling show, but if I dare recommend it instead of the visual novel, its fan base will throw me into the sun. I have but two things to say to you: giant robots and Jolene's voice actor. Got your attention? Rumble Garanndoll takes place in a timeline where a rift to another dimension is opened up, leading to an imperialist reverse Japan pouring through and conquering the real Japan. Yeah, I'm kinda lost too. This results in the subjugation of the most oppressed people of all: gamers. Our hero is Kudo, a male host club worker that stumbles upon a giant robot assisted by a robotic Aphorus who receives her energy by, I'm not kidding, blasting anime music at top volume. If you haven't gathered it by now, Garanndoll is trash, but the best kind of trash. Clearly being a satirical take on mecha reveling in an absolute shameless pandering that had me dying for 23 minutes straight. Scum's Wish and Toilet-Bound Hanako-kun director Masami Ando isn't really known for over-the-top nonsense like this, but goddamn does he need to make more of it. I'm under no delusions that this anime is any good, but I'm keeping the VR headset on and living in my fantasy because I had so much garbage fun. You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was mildly impressed by this isekai. The Faraway Paladin is essentially Mushoku Tensei if you chose the dark side option instead of the light side. Our hero is Will, who instead of being reincarnated into a loving family with connections to nobility, he's the child of a ghost, a skeleton, and a necromancer mommy, who teach him magic and foster his talents from an early age. If you think the Mushoku Tensei comparisons are unfair, keep in mind that the author has literally said that his goal was to replicate the success without the ecchi. I suppose there's nothing to grope if Will's family is undead. Nevertheless, the Faraway Paladin drew me in the same way Mushoku Tensei did, not beating me over the head with bad mobile JRPG tier world building, while actually treating Will as a real person with real fears and foibles and not just some overpowered douchebag with a cell phone. While it didn't have the same visual punch as its inspiration, and basically nothing happened in the first episode, the musical score and direction was comparatively captivating, and it achieved what very few fantasy isekai are able to do, make me want to watch the second episode. Full disclosure, as a gigantic Tsugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata sim, I have read the entirety of Platinum End, so this section isn't much of a first impression so much as a post-mortem. Speaking of post-mortem, this anime starts dark. Mirai is a young man dissatisfied with life, and when a young angel interferes with his attempt to end it, he's pulled into a contest between 13 people to decide the next god, given special powers to accomplish that goal, including fight, chaos with extra steps, and good old-fashioned murder. So apart from being somehow edgier than Death Note could ever hope for, does Platinum End stack up to it or Bakuman? Well, no. Make no mistake, Oba's skill at suspense is still unrivaled in this series, but Mirai is so painfully uninteresting compared to the likes of Light or Mishiro, rarely accomplishing much of anything compared to those around him, and ironically, when he finally does later into the series, it feels so out of character. This stems from a bizarre attempt to make him more down-to-earth while simultaneously making the edgiest manga that they possibly could. If you thought the first episode was dark, then oh boy are you in for some stuff. As for the anime, it really fails to capture the beauty and nuance of Takeshi Obata's style that makes Platinum End legitimately one of the best looking manga ever made. But the quality of the voice acting and the sound design honestly almost make up for it. My recommendation is to grab your Black Bangs, Spencer's Jeans, and My Chemical Romance vinyls and see for yourself if the anime equivalent of exactly what your boomer parents think kids nowadays are up to is right for you. Yes, I get it, Madhouse and Mappa are working on an anime together. Look, I thought Jujutsu Kaisen was as groundbreaking as shown in animation as much as the next guy, but at this point it feels like people are treating Mappa like those soy jack pointing memes, putting them up on a pedestal like they don't have more skeletons in their closet than a Marvel actor who has yet to delete their 10-year-old tweets. Takt Op Destiny undoubtedly looks incredible, with fight sequences that rival some of the best that Jujutsu Kaisen and frankly some of Ufotable's magnum opuses have to offer. But you're all aware that this is a mobile game tie-in anime written by Kyoko Yoshimoto, who wrote this game, right? Takt is about some monsters that are bad and some people with powers who go on a road trip. The music-based power system is different, but how much of that really matters in the face of a plot so bare bones, these Marvel skeletons that I just mentioned would be shrieking in fear. This anime could radically change and destroy my expectations, but personally there wasn't really much here to capture my imagination besides the amazing animation. While Jujutsu Kaisen established a likable and diverse cast early on, if this anime wants to be carried by its animation, it's going to have to put in some effort to climb on its back. But this anime looks so goddamn amazing that I really hope that it's able to pull off this orchestration. Within only the first few frames, you are made instantly aware of who exactly created the Heike Story. The long, isolated piano chords, the emphasis on dreamlike lighting, and an opening that lets you know instantly Naoko Yamada wants you to know that not everything is gonna be okay. Based on the epic poem The Tale of Heike, recounting the tale of two warring clans in 14th century Japan, the anime focuses on Biwa, a young blind girl and traveling musician gifted with the ability to see the future. Undoubtedly one of, if not the most hyped anime of the season, the artisan skill of Naoko is not lost, but those not already intimately familiar with the poem in question might just be. The flat, muted color of the animation beautifully complements the historically Japanese aesthetic, but the cinematography of Hiroko Kimura is wonderfully modern. But without the historical context possessed by only those this anime was meant for, I found connecting to the plight of the characters difficult. The Heike story is going to demand attention, assassin and work hard with his genius presentation to get there, but I'm sure that if you can get past what is undoubtedly a less mass-market narrative than what Naoko Yamada's previous works were, there's a masterpiece waiting for you on the other side. You might be absolutely blown away to hear this, but I was impressed by this isekai. But honestly, the episode wasn't much of an isekai at all. As with so many other series in the genre, the title is relatively self-explanatory. But as it turns out, backstory is actually a thing in this anime. Our main character, Lou, is, you guessed it, the world's finest assassin, working for hire for a shadowy group simply called the Organization. Ironically, on the very day of his retirement, the Organization turns on him and blasts him out of the sky. That is, until he stands before the goddess of the new world and told to kill the isekai world hero. Killing heroes ought to come naturally for series author Rui Sakio, who is also the creator of the infamous redo of a healer, but don't worry. This assassin prefers to use a long gun from afar as opposed to a long... you know what, terrible joke. The lack of focus or even care about a protagonist's backstory is one of my chief complaints with the genre of isekai. So spending an entire opening episode with our main character before getting offed is a refreshing surprise, and honestly was a really thrilling one at that. I don't know much about the source material, but I really do hope that the world's finest assassin maintains that Hitman Ocean 11's feel that hooked me into its pilot, and doesn't devolve into bog standard fantasy isekai harem nonsense, because honestly I just want to see more heads pop. Sakugan is an adventure anime in an awkward spot, in that the anime was scheduled for last year but was delayed to 2021, leading the manga tie-in to being released before the actual anime. Series creator Junichi Wada has directed some stuff, but we're just gonna ignore that one and go in with an open mind. And trust me, you'll thank me for that. Now, a naive observer might say that Sakugan is just a knockoff of Maiden Abyss told in reverse. Our heroes Momenpu, a young college graduate, and her dad Gagunpar are workers in an underground colony idolizing the Markers, this world's explorers of a seemingly endless labyrinth outside the walls of their city, and you can probably see where this is going. Okay, yeah, those naive observers are probably right, but I don't think I care. Despite the unique ability of anime to tell stories far outside of the realm of reality, pure adventure anime seems so rare and to the medium's detriment. Admittedly, Sakugan's aesthetic is nothing that should feel unfamiliar, but the prospect of a true father-daughter journey to the ends of the earth is one that pulled me in instantly, and I cannot wait to see where Sakugan goes. You know what's totally hilarious? Office politics. No, really, I genuinely am starting to fear that I may have well and good transferred to boomer territory when I genuinely found my senpai is annoying more entertaining than the majority of high school rom-coms out there. The anime follows Futaba, a new hire at a run-of-the-mill advertising and marketing firm. Yes, enthralling, I know. Who finds her older coworker Takeda to be unsufferably annoying. Except not really when she begins to develop feelings for him. Of course, said feelings are not reciprocated because she, well, looks like she could be the same age as many of the other Futabas. My senpai's annoying strength is Futaba's hilarious childlike outlook on adult problems, and frankly the entire damn show being wholesome as shit. One of my favorite jokes is when Futaba asks her coworker Toko what gets her throughout the day, and she nonchalantly pulls out a whole-ass jar of vodka. Lowbrow and not exactly the most original joke, sure, but Ryoto Itao's direction stitches together each joke so seamlessly that I don't see anyone getting bored with my little office worker can't be this cute. It's the type of anime that won't have you laughing out loud or crying in tears at the romantic drama, but giving you the biggest damn grin on your face the entire time. I wrote and rewrote this section of the video over and over, bouncing between ironic humor, sarcastic quips about one of my top 10 manga being actual trash, and every manner of trick to make light of the fact that Blue Period legitimately has the power to change your life. This manga means a lot to me, and not just because of how powerful it is, but because of how closely I connect with its main character Yatora. He's a young man who coasts through life, putting on different faces for different people, feeling his only purpose in life is to please those around him. That is, until he discovers something that fulfills him personally, the world of painting. I'm not a painter, and I can count the number of artistic works I've made on my hands, but Blue Period beautifully connects to my own struggle of finding something that actually matters, and why it's so pertinent to tell you not to watch Blue Period. The genius of this manga is how Tsubasa Yamaguchi is able to tell 1,000 words in just one panel, transferring the thoughts, feelings, and struggles of a character in a single drawing, just one face. While the anime is still beautiful, still one of the best of the season, Seven Arc's adaptation simply fails to capture those most compelling moments, glossing over emotionally impactful scenes and speeding through the chapters in an attempt to tell as much as the story as possible. But it's not the story that matters, not the endpoint of Yotoda's personal growth, but the journey of how we get there. Blue Period communicates deeply how we as humans endeavor to find out who we are, and the anime is much more focused on who we become. Many anime receive subpar adaptations, Tokyo Revengers being a recent one to come to mind, but it still serves as an adequate communication of the narrative and serves as a jumping off point to continue the manga. But Blue Period, I feel, spoils that narrative through a lack of emotional focus, treating each moment as just a plot point to run through and fundamentally transforms the manga into something it's not. While this will likely still end up being one of the best of the season, I think it's vital that you instead experience Blue Period as it's meant to, in printed form. In a world of hyped up manga series I haven't even touched on the Barnes & Noble shelf, romantic comedy Komi Can't Communicate stands silently on top. Tadano is an average slub who takes an interest in the class beauty Komi, but hits a wall when he discovers, you guessed it, that Komi can't communicate. They take an interest to each other as Komi uses a chalkboard to spill her heart to Tadano, who resolves to help her achieve 100 friends. I don't know if the manga is truly as incredible as people say, and as a licensed cold-hearted bastard, I came in expecting just another alright rom-com adaptation, and yeah, you were alright. Komi's first episode was beautiful. Ayume Watanabe being near cinematic in his approach to what I thought was merely another lighthearted teen drama. Yukari Hashimoto's serene soundtrack caught me tearing up like a baby when the pair bore their soul to each other, only to shock me back to reality with its wit and pinpoint deadpan comedy. I'm sure the manga is great, but I genuinely could not imagine matching what I saw with this single episode. Komi Can't Communicate is yet another reminder that you are never smarter than the hype, the herd is always right, and you should just come join me with the rest of the sheep. You know, it's been quite a bit of time, so I'm pretty ready to say this confidently. Wit Studio has not only never made anything bad, but is actually incapable of making something bad. Just like it's incapable of making profit, but that aside! The anime stars the deaf, dumb, but not blind boy Boji, who's both the first prince of his realm and the laughingstock of the kingdom. When Boji makes his first friend, of which our boy seems unconcerned looks like a literal demon spawn, he begins his journey to prove the haters wrong. The manga has been around since 2017, but nobody has bothered to translate much of any of it. So when Wit picked up Ranking of Kings, I was skeptical. But much like Boji, director Yosuke Hata shut me up real quick. The anime style undoubtedly harkens back to an 80s aesthetic, but is wonderfully modernized through a sprinkling of Wit's style. But the real draw of Ranking of Kings is how it glues your eyes to the screen, rooting for the little dork every step of the way. The pacing was phenomenal, not having to rely on flashy fight scenes, but rather famed erased in Jujutsu Kaisen scriptwriter Taki Kishimoto's pure skill. Much like Attack on Titan has you preening to see if the scouts make it out of this one, the anime makes you devoted to seeing Boji have the doubters eat shit. Ranking of Kings is a masterclass in anime composition, and my favorite anime of fall 2021.
Really? Ranking of Kings was your favorite? I thought you loved Blue Period.
Yeah, I love Blue Period, and the anime is great, but you're just missing a lot if you don't go with the manga.
Anyway, you've passed the test.
So what happens now?
Now you can go watch anime. It's not like anyone's gonna get this reference.
Yeah, we should have gone with Squid Game.